Hello, Ron. Can you hear us yet? Ron, can you hear me?
Yes, Alan, I hear you.
We miss your happy face over here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. How's that?
That works. So, Stephanie, the things that you just handed out to us, was Ron able to get the copies of that? Or is that something new? Okay.
I should have that on the computer. Or is that new stuff?
It's new.
It's
we
new.
received 2 public comments.
Oh, okay. I can listen when you guys read them.
Okay. All right.
Good enough for me.
It's 2 o'clock. Stephanie, you ready? Okay. We're going to call this planning and zoning meeting for January 3rd to order. Happy New Year to everybody. Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Briley?
Here.
Commissioner Baugh? Here. Commissioner Byers?
Here.
Commissioner McLean?
Here?
Commissioner Richardson?
Here.
Commissioner Rigsby?
Here.
Also present is Stephanie and Samantha for the Community Development Department and Zach Cook, the attorney. You do have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. Declaration of conflict of interest. Anybody have any interest in these items, or the one item we have today? Seeing none, we'll go on with the next. Certification and compliance. Stephanie?
I do certify that the meeting and property was posted in accordance with section 5440 of the municipal code and with accordance of resolution 2022-01.
Thank you. We'll get you a new resolution today. Approval of agenda. Everybody look it over. We have 2 items. Can I hear a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of December 6th. Did everybody get a chance to read those? Any? Yes, sir. Okay. Anybody have any comments? Grammatical errors? Spelling errors? Nothing? Can I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the meeting minutes for the regular meeting on December 6th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Stephanie, roll call, please. Yes.
Aye.
Commissioner McLean?
I'm going to abstain because I was not at the meeting.
Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rigsby?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. This is an opportunity. Our next item is for public input. We're asking if anybody has any public comments for the Planning Commission. Planning and Commission for items that are not on the agenda. We have some audience here today. There must be here for the agenda items. So hearing none, seeing none, I'll go to the next item. New business, discussion possible adoption of Resolution 2023-01, Open Meetings Act. We have this resolution every January, the first meeting in January. I do have 2 new people on here, and so I need to do my yearly spiel. This is where, if you don't like the time or the day, this is where we can have discussion to talk about it. Because I work in Roswell and I come up here for this meeting, I have to take vacation days. I know some of you also work, and whether it's a good time at 2 o'clock or if you want to adjust the time, this is where we can talk about it and look for a change if so wanted to. So, do I have any discussion?
I'm good.
So am I.
All right,
I'm good.
fine. You guys are paying my vacation leave.
You haven't eaten.
All right, we have a motion. Anybody?
I move that we leave the meeting schedule as is.
Second.
And approval of the resolution. Is that what you said, Robert?
Sure.
Yes. We second that.
We have a motion and a second to pass the resolution exactly as is, first Tuesday of every month at 2 o'clock. Stephanie, call roll, please.
Commissioner Baugh? Aye. Commissioner Briley?
Yes.
Commissioner Byers?
Aye.
Commissioner McLean?
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rigsby?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Boy, would it have carried if I voted no? All right, it's New Year's. Come on, everybody, be happy. All right, our next item is a conditional use approval request case 2022-507. Samantha, you want to give us an update and, I guess, a brief on what this is about?
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Our applicant is Carlo Trujillo. He's requesting approval to develop a single commercial cabin rental within the C2 district. And there is an issue with the lack of parking for the structure, and so he'd like a variance due to that hardship as well. We do have them with us here, so I'll let him explain his request to you all. I'm sure you've had a chance to look through the case study, so.
Okay. Since I think everybody's here for this item, I'm going to ask everybody all at the same time to stand up and swear in that what you're, if you're going to testify for or against this, please. Swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under penalty of law. Okay, all I'm going to ask is when you come up to the microphone to state your name for the record, please. So, come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Trujillo. Carlo and I are married. My husband and I purchased the property of 2904 Suddarth Drive, which is Zone C2. The purpose of our request is to ask for a variance in the C2 zoning. Prior to and upon purchasing the property, we were aware of the parking restraints. We have also spoke to the surrounding business owners, learning about their continuous parking problems within this property. According to Mr. John Hunton, the owner of the Adobe, he had to police his parking lot as many of 2904 Suddarth Park patrons would continuously park in his parking lot. Additionally, John mentioned that he would have to call the previous owner multiple times a day, letting her know that patrons were parking in his parking lot and blocking his delivery access. We have heard many stories like this from all of the surrounding businesses, which all the historical parking problems, we started researching C2 businesses that would minimize the impact to the surrounding businesses, business owners, and neighbors. We came up with the cabin rental, which is allowed under C2 zoning. However, under the Code of Ordinance, Section 54-100C1, cabin rental structures contain a minimum of 4 dwellings, and under that code are required 2 parking spots each. Now, this particular building has a very unique history, parking layout, as well as a plot layout. As that, in the early 2000s, the DOT, what we can only assume, exercised eminent domain by taking the front part of the property, eliminating what little parking and space we had in the front. The DOT now utilizes the front of the property as street access, which is now part of the roadway to the upper channel. By doing so, it left this property sandwiched between 2 other businesses, eliminating all front parking. In turn, this left the property with a very minimal parking in the back via Sleepy Hollow Road. Within our provided variance packet, the easement document, which is recorded easement filed and recorded in 2007 with Lincoln County, showing the allotted easement. In 2007, the entire property of 1A and 1B, which at one time were one full property, was replatted for the purpose of granting a walking, parking, service, and utility maintenance easement. The easement was granted by the Village of Ruidoso, PNM, and all other authorities. On the easement survey, the specs are 29.81 feet wide, which by DOT regulations allow for only 3 parking vehicles side by side. Based on our research, we have found that similar variances have been approved throughout various commercial properties within the Village of Ruidoso. Additionally, research included that the 2021 MRA report passed, approved, adopted in March 2021, signed by Mayor Crawford, highlighted and recommended the need for mixed-use properties in commercial districts, which focused on Sudeth Drive. As such, we are respectfully requesting a C2 cabin rental variance from 4 cabins to 1 single cabin rental, which we feel will prevent traffic congestion in neighboring businesses, prevent overcrowding, while reducing safety issues, due to the property only having 3 parking spaces available to our patrons. Thank you.
Thank you. Any of the other applicants want to say anything? You're sworn in. Okay. Commissioners? I will say something. Go ahead, come on. And state your name, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlo Trujillo. Basically, the only thing I want to say is we recently moved from overseas. We were in Japan, and while we were in Japan, our parents uprooted here in Ruidoso and made Ruidoso their permanent home. Since then, we've been back about a year, and we've really come to enjoy this community, and we've read all the plans and done a lot of research, and we love the vision and the direction that this community is going. So we thought that this is a community that we really want to invest in and potentially down the road, when we retire, potentially move to and bring our kids. Our kids are 13 and 10 now, but still got a little while. But it's a community that we like the vision and where it's going, and we've enjoyed being here. With that being said, the property that we did purchase, we knew there was going to be some obstacles. We've done a lot of research. We've heard from a lot of people. We've talked to a lot of people, including John, the neighbor next door from Adobe, and he actually had put in a strong objection prior to meeting us, and it was submitted. We met him and told him our plan, and basically what we're trying to do is minimize the impact that has caused issues for, according to John, 24 plus years. We know that, we own commercial businesses in Los Lunas and Valencia County, and we know that, your parking is sacred. It's your area, it's for your patrons, and we know that it's difficult to have a business in the commercial district that has 11 to 13 offices, which it has now. Those people are going to come to your establishment, and they're going to park wherever they can find parking, regardless. So we knew coming in that 11 to 13 office seemed excessive for us. That's what's there now. So in doing research, we were trying to see what's going to be the most minimal impact to the community, the residents of Sleepy Hollow, which is predominantly residential, and the commercial businesses throughout the area. Because we know it's been a problem. We've talked to pretty much every neighbor, and we did that prior to closing on the deal. Knowing the past history, doing the research, we thought that a single cabin rental is going to be as minimally as evasive as possible to the neighboring communities. And that's really what we're trying to do. Another big thing for us is safety concerns. Although maybe there is space to pack in just a ton of vehicles in the back part easement, to us, it creates a big safety concern. If there's a fire, an evacuation needed, and you have just people crammed in, double parked, and they can't get out by having four cabin rentals, morally and ethically, I just we just didn't think that that was gonna be the right thing to do, is just to cram people in that. So, we did do some research. We have found some other properties, including the property just behind us to the north, which is C2 zoned and uses residential use, and shown actually in this document. So we thought, well, maybe this is a good route to go. So at the end of the day, we are just trying to do what we feel is gonna cause the most minimal impact to the community. Cause, you know, we wanna be here and we wanna get along with our neighbors, and we don't want that same parking issue that's been going on for 24 plus years. Thank you.
So, Commissioners, I'm going to open it up for your questions before we go to public hearing. I have just one question that I guess I'm not 100% sure on. Is the lot 1A that's behind you on Sleepy Hollow, does that belong to you, or you just have the parking and utility, or parking and walkway easement?
That lot does not belong to us.
Okay.
The parking easement that is filed and currently in place has been in place since 2007. We also have a letter from the previous owner, stating that she was using that parking easement, from 2019 until she sold the property, and that there was, an agreement, aside from the easement, there was a verbal agreement and discussion with the owners. So that property is not ours, it's just an easement.
So the easement was granted to the previous owners for the purpose of that building?
Yeah, for 1B, and in the actual easement document, it states that it's access from Sleepy Hollow to property 1B. The properties are split up between 1A and 1B, and it specifically says parking and walkway easement for property 1B. And we have our real estate attorney, prior to, conduct extensive research. We also had, this was part of our closing documents. We researched our deed. Our deed references the exact easement. The property behind us references the exact same easement. So we have the.
I see it on here, yes.
And we have the deed from our property as well as the deed for property 1A, because we wanted to make sure that that was in fact, clear in our deed and the property behind us deed. And the property that I'm referring to behind us is C2. That property is actually residential, used as residential rental right now.
Understood. Commissioners, questions for the applicants?
So Chairman, on Lot B, if I'm looking at this right, it's just over 82 feet next to the road. Is that correct?
Verify, but that sounds about right.
On 1B?
Correct.
Yes, that's about right.
And then you've got up next to the house, approximately, call it 37 feet. And you're 75 deep on one side and 52, 72 approximately deep in there. Is that what I'm looking at?
Are you talking about the easement, sir?
1B, yes.
Well, 1B is our property.
Right.
The easement is on lot
1A.
So, but y'all have 1B.
Correct.
It's, you own that outright.
Yes, 1B is ours.
So that's the photograph that we're looking at here, is that
That's the
correct?
back.
That's the backside.
This is
where
1B.
the easement is.
Right, but that's part of your property.
It's an easement.
Okay.
The property actually legally belongs to 1A,
A.
but it's an easement that was put in place in 2007 for access from Sleepy Hollow to 1B. In 2007, the lot was split, and in order for them to split, they had to have some type of easement. It used to be one big property, and we have the map that shows when it was one big property. And in 2007, that property, a replat was requested, and when they did that replat, that's when the easement was created to allow access.
It's on the plat. It's right here, number 4. Note number 4.
Where do you have?
You're there. It's right
Oh, okay.
there. No 4.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
am I correct in understanding that number 4 says for foot traffic? There's nothing, does it need to be set aside for vehicles or for parking? It just says foot traffic. Is that correct?
The,
Note 4 on the plat that we were provided?
it says for foot traffic and service, maintain the water and sewer.
And the actual, if you look at the
Yeah.
actual easement itself.
Yeah, it says parking and.
Parking and.
Yeah.
And it's been, since 2007, it's been utilized, as well as the previous owner. We have a letter, if you would like to see it, we have a letter from the people we bought it from that have been using it for parking. And she signed it.
So the complete, no, I'll let you just sit up here so I can get your response.
So the complete note for number 4 is an easement to hereby grant for access from Sleepy Hollow Road to Lot 1B for foot traffic, which is the walking, and to service, which would be to service anything, any patrons that would go to that business, and maintain the existing water and sewer lines coming from Lot 1B across Lot 1A. And on the actual plot, it says parking and walkways.
Right, but not in the notes of what I referred to on number 4. So the actual easement had that word, and that, I don't see that we've got a copy of that.
It's on the large tablet size.
Right. This is why commas are important. Because, and to service and maintain, not and to service, right? It sounds like it's to maintain the water and sewer lines and foot traffic, not necessarily parking.
Comma and easements. Noted.
And to service would be to service.
And to service and maintain. That's, like I was saying, if there was a comma separating them into 3, it would be and to service the property, or and to provide service at the property. But I believe it's to service and maintain.
So one last question, and I think I know the answer. So our code says C2 for rentals like this has to be 4. You're saying you want to put it just as 1 to alleviate the parking requirements for 4.
Correct.
Does that summarize it? Okay.
Because the parking is just to minimize the impact of what has happened in the past 25 years to the surrounding businesses.
Understood.
So, do you have a definite number of bedrooms? Or how many occupants will be in this establishment at one
So
time?
as of right now, we're in the planning stages of what we can do, or what we want to do. So we can make it we can make it 4 bedrooms, we can make it 3 bedrooms, we can make it 5. As of right now, we're leaning towards a 4-bedroom. We'll have to add bathrooms, of course, and a kitchen.
So you get 2 spaces per unit. You're going to call this 1 unit when you're done?
Yes, that's what we're asking.
So you're going to have a 4-bedroom, 1 unit.
Right, just like a cabin rental, like a large cabin rental.
Right.
We've seen that the Ruidoso does have a lot of large cabin rentals that rent on a nightly basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the entire residence would be 1 cabin rental.
Mr. Chairman, so you want to use this as a nightly rental and put it on Airbnb, VRBO?
If allowed, I know that there was some talk about the Airbnb was not allowed, but I do know that Ruidoso has a Ruidoso cabin rental site in itself. So as a rental, yes, to bring people into the town to patronize the town.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rick. No?
No,
Okay. More questions?
If you're looking at the street view of your property, the parking lot to the right, do you not own that, or you?
No, so the property in itself is sandwiched in between 2 other businesses. So there's really, the property, the building utilized all of the space. So there, in the early 2000s, the property, our actual property line goes out into the street.
Right.
So what we assume is eminent domain, and in fact, with Mr. Hunting, for the owner of Adobe, he said the same thing happened to them. They came and took the the extra parking away and made it into street access,
Okay,
taking away all of our parking in the front.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I would like to clarify, we don't expect you all to be reading the legalities of the plat. As you can see, it doesn't say that it's a parking easement. It's for ingress and egress and access from Sleepy Hollow to this property. That's the way that we understand it to be, and so we do not have a formal parking agreement that would afford them more spaces. And it does look like there's some landscaping that they could do in the front to maybe add a space, but as far as staff is concerned, there is not a proper parking easement in place.
Interesting. Thank you, Sam.
Comment.
Go.
I'm familiar with this property as far as just because I've been here a long time, and I remember when Pete Thompson had an office there, and when I look at this and hear that there's 11 office spaces available in the place, how in the world are 11 people, attorneys, accountants, whoever occupies that type of space, supposed to even come and park, even if they're operating over the internet? You know, there's not any parking anyways. This is a situation that something has to be addressed. It is a hardship, and it was even difficult to park back when there was parking in front of that building, because you had to back out into traffic and all. And anyways, I'm just trying to state the obvious and wonder what we can do to come up with a solution to, because it is a nice big structure that needs to be utilized, and it's to the benefit of our community to have it occupied and producing income. So.
And that's definitely our main goal, is to revamp it. We have plans to even redo the outside, some of it. We want to just make it something that'll stand out, that will bring people to Ruidoso. That way they can experience the town. And as of right now, with the current covenants, it's just not feasible as of right now. But with the parking easement that we do have in the back, it would make more sense just to have it as a single cabin.
Mr. Chair McCormick. So you're stating there that you're suggesting a single cabin because of the parking, not because of other issues. So if parking wasn't an issue, let's remove that as a side right now. The zoning is still incorrect for what you're intending to use the property for. You can use a bed breakfast, you could do hotel motel, right? So if parking's your primary reason for changing it to a single cabin rental, is that correct?
For a single cabin rental. However, under C2, you still can have cabin rentals. So it is hotel, motel.
Correct,
And
but not
cabin
just
rentals.
one,
But
one
not
night.
one, correct.
Yes.
The minimum is 4.
The conditional use is for minimum of 4, correct, yeah. And so the primary reason for taking it from 4 to 1 is because of parking.
Yes, yeah. Because you can't expect people to park anywhere and obstruct other people's businesses.
Okay, thank you.
One more, and then we'll go to public hearing, before I get snowed in
Yeah.
Village Hall here.
We got to drive to Albuquerque, so hopefully that doesn't happen. So I know that the parking easement in the back is kind of a concern. So we actually received a call from Stephanie Warren, and she put us on a conference call with the neighbor behind us, I believe, of Miss Jenkins. And we actually talked and discussed that, this has been an issue. And through the discussion, it was a real good discussion. Basically, throughout the discussion, Ms. Jenkins and myself both indicated, look, we need to be reasonable on this, and we'll both work together. And I think she even stated that we're all human beings, and we need access, and we'll make it work. So during that meeting with Stephanie monitoring and kind of mediating, we set up a meeting for myself and the Jenkins family to meet on Friday. We live in the Albuquerque area. So immediately, next day, we got in the car and drove down, and we actually had a meeting set up for Friday morning. We arrived Thursday, and then that meeting was canceled. So we're still in hopes, and we're still in messages. We don't want to use the entire easement. It's the easement and the area, the terrain is very difficult. So although the area is really big, it's not like you could really use it anyways. There's very minimal parking and space. So we feel that, you know, if we can work together, we're not trying to say we want to use every square inch of this. We're reasonable people. We just want to minimize the impact to her as well as everybody else. So I hope that we can just come up with a reasonable use for this property, because I think it's beautiful, and there's a lot of, I think it's going to be a neat property when you're done. It was built in the 60s. There's beautiful beams that were hidden behind, you know, all this paneling. So I think it's, to me, it feels like it's a historic building that would really be a nice, welcome sight as you turn in to go up to Upper Canyon. So.
Can I ask when that telephone conference was with Ms. Jenkins?
Her first name?
I believe that was Wednesday,
This Wednesday?
last Wednesday.
So it's before or after the letter came in? Okay. Okay.
No, the response we got from her was on the 30th. The meeting that we had on the phone was prior to that.
Okay. There are people that want to talk about this, so I'm going to go ahead and start the public hearing. We can talk, we'll have more questions afterwards. So I'm going to open the meeting for public hearing. So is there anybody here that wants to speak for or against this project? Please come on up and state your name for the record, please.
Hello, you guys. My name is Pam Jenkins.
Hi, Pam.
I am the owner of 105 Sleepy Hollow. When I had spoke to Mr. Trujillo after receiving the letter from the village, I called Stephanie to discuss exactly what was being asked for. In the easement, it does not state parking. There is no parking. It is foot traffic, and that's how my owner's policy reads. That's how I took possession of this property. On the back side, there is my yard. It's a very small lot. I did send you guys the letter that we sent to Stephanie. I sent our improvement survey showing that the stairs and the block wall that is adjacent to their property encroaches onto my property. And I also do have a copy of the easement. However, in the survey drawing, that doesn't really dictate the easement. I know that you said that this isn't a public hearing over parking, but that's the issue. If we allowed the owners to park, that would be one thing. But a constant parade of commerce for nightly rental people to park on my yard and walk through on an encroached staircase to their property is a liability for everyone. That's what we're trying to prevent. When he and I spoke, I had not read his application. He did send it to me. He implied like the zoning was what he was after, but on the application it stated very clearly that he's after a parking variance. But any of his endeavors should not harm us financially. And if he opens that up to a nightly rental with the only parking that is not in the easement, it's for foot traffic only, and he doesn't live here, it's going to be very difficult for him to monitor the people he gets into that place. So if they're parking, it's just going to become an issue for everyone, for Mr. Trujillo, for us, for my son who lives at 105 Sleepy Hollow full-time. That's what I'm trying to prevent. I don't know where else to take it with the parking issue, but it states very clearly that it is for foot traffic only. However, the foot traffic goes up a brick wall, a rock staircase that can be treacherous to begin with. much less in snow, and then he allows, even if he finds parking on Sleepy Hollow, if they try to use that access, that could be very detrimental for people. And where does the liability lie? So the encroachment is on my property, so if it's used for people other than them to where there is a standard that you can use it, we can use it, and there's an understanding, if you get anybody being able to go up those stairs on that easement for a financial gain onto my property, that's what I'm against. Because I don't know where the clear line is as to liability on that encroachment. So not only is there no parking, but the staircase that's referred to as the foot traffic is also an encroachment on my property. So those are my concerns. That's mine and my husband's concern solely. It's not trying to limit any use that Mr. Trujillo has for his property. It is a beautiful property. And the verbal agreement between me and the previous owner was just that. She acknowledged that there was no parking easement. Because she was a business, she did ask me if she could park there from 8 until 5, Monday through Friday. She did not allow her customers to park there, and she parked there very little because she didn't keep her counseling center there very long. I've only owned the property since 2018. I'm just trying to minimize any liability to me on my property and to Mr. Trujillo.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I may, just to clarify my statements from earlier, this is a major issue in the case is parking. And so if that came off any other way, I'd like to take back my statement. But parking is one of the main concerns here. With that, I do feel that your property is not, is a liability, as you're saying, as well as paying property taxes to allow somebody to park on your property that you won't have access to because the vehicles are there. So that's a big concern.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wish to speak for or against this, please? Here. How about online? Does anybody wish to speak for or against this conditional use?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Gwen Gomez, and I would like to speak.
Gwen, I don't think you swore in to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, but I need you to state that you will tell the truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay, Ms. Gomez, go ahead and,
Can we get her address?
yes, sorry, can we get your address, please, Ms. Gomez?
Yes, 886 Supreme Court, Las Cruces, New Mexico, 88007.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Sam, go ahead.
Gwen, would you please state your property address that you own that is within 200 feet of this site?
Yes, I would. It's 2906 Sutterth.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'm going to give you 3 minutes, please.
3 minutes. Everybody else got a bit more, but I'll try my best. Thank you.
I tried to cut Ms. Jenkins off, but I was too slow.
I am the owner of 2906, which is adjacent to 2904. I did receive the letter in the package, and I called Mr. Trujillo myself to try to figure out what's going on because the paperwork wasn't very clear. He assured me that this was going to be a cabin that they would be redoing, 4 to 5 bedrooms, over 3,000 square feet. And this was going to be for family use because he had family there, he has his children, etc. And it was going to be a cabin. So we had talked about parking, we talked about plans and moved on from there. So I was quite happy that I know this property, I've owned it. I don't want to tell you how long I've owned it. We are right in the middle of redoing the whole property. We're getting the sidewalks done by the village. So we will be having that property fully leased come springtime. We have been impacted by every business that's been there. And it has been very, very difficult. I can't even imagine now if this turns into a commercial rental, how are we looking at any type of parking? And we look at the impact that it will have on the property next door. it is human nature for anybody who's been by there that you would zip into my property at 2906 Sutterth because you take a couple steps and you're looking in the front door of Sutterth. So if this does become a cabin rental, our property will be severely impacted. Now, if you picture yourself of a softball tournament, et cetera, you're probably looking at how many people do you think you can get into a 4 or 5 bedroom place? This property was listed for a long time. I know when it was the title company. I know when it was a check cashing business, the stories had it. And I also know when it was a counseling center. All of these people all were very aware of the parking situation. And all of them were able to get it at a lucrative price. And now they come to us and they're looking for variances. The backside, I don't even know anything about handicap accessibility, but if you're going to rent this out, how would you even have handicap accessibility for people who are going to rent this? I don't know if it's required or not. But what they're gonna do, and I can tell you this right now, is they're gonna be parking in our lot, and we're gonna be the bad guys again. Because we're gonna have to put up the signage, we're gonna have to put up with the tow truck people, and you know what we're gonna be doing? We're gonna be taking people out of that lot every day. And then everybody hates the owner of 2906 because we towed vehicles. So I really don't know the answer for this property. As the gentleman said, you know, it's been going on for how long? I think the actual best use for that is to make it residential, close up the Sutter entrance to the property and make it purely residential. And then utilize Sleepy Hollow. But to have that large of a cabin, 3,000 square feet, 4 to 5 bedrooms, people packed in there. The question is 2 parking places, 3 parking places, where are they gonna park? So I do appreciate their willingness to try to figure out an answer for this and to improve the property. But I am against that because of the impact and the handicap accessibility. Thank you so much for your time.
And you did that in under 3 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak for or against this case? Anybody online? Anybody in the public? I'm going to close the public hearing. If the applicant would come back to the microphone, because I'm sure we have more questions. So Ms. Jenkins said that their application was for parking, but this is a conditional use for 1 cabin versus 4.
In
that-
addition to
in
a variance
addition
for the
to a
hardship
variance.
of lack of parking.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Point of clarification for Sam and Zach. The requirement for additional parking comes into play when we change the occupancy via the conditional use, correct? Because as it currently stands at C2, and based off of the requirement we have under section 54-141, off-street parking, it's grandfathered in, because this was before 1999 that it was a commercial building, right? So if we change based off the conditional use, then the parking requirements come into play. Is that correct?
So the building, if it's been vacant for over 90 days, then that section 54-141 comes into play. Just because the building has been there since that time, operations haven't, and as you can tell, the use has changed throughout the years.
Gotcha, but the zoning hasn't. And so it's just based off of use, not the zone of the building?
Yes, parking spaces are determined by use.
Okay. So then, another point of clarification, if we do grant the conditional use, that provision doesn't, it's not impacted, correct? That's not a part of this?
Parking?
Yeah, for the off-street parking facilities.
It is. So parking's determined by the use, and the use is determined by zoning.
Gotcha. Okay. I think I get it.
You sure?
You know? Yes,
So-
I think so.
Obviously, you stated in your testimony that you knew that parking and everything was going to be an issue. Did you go to any of your neighbors or anything to rent, buy, purchase off-street parking? Off-site parking, I guess that would be.
Yeah, my husband actually contacted Gwen the property right, and asked if she would be willing or wanting or have the idea or inclination, we just put a seed in her ear, about possibly purchasing a small portion of her area or lease for parking.
Okay.
I do want to reiterate that on the filed and recorded easement, nowhere on it does it say walking only. It has and, but never walking only.
But I don't,
Yeah.
I don't think I
she-
saw the
yeah,
word
yeah,
parking either.
Yeah. Parking and walkway easement.
Maybe I missed
Parking
that.
and walkway easement. So.
Oh, that's, okay, that's
Yeah.
words on the plat, but not in the notes. I got it. Okay,
And service could be interchangeable as well.
okay. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, Alan, I have a few.
Go ahead, Ron.
Even if you were to turn this into a single-family residence, where would you park?
And our legal documented easement,
The one that's behind the building, correct?
yes. Which is filed through the Lincoln County.
Okay. The area that's to the east of the building, where the big shrub is, how much area do you have up there for parking?
Without measuring it, I would say that there is probably, let me look at the plot. Maybe enough for one, but that would also you would have to take an extensive amount of that anterior, landscaping out. There's a retaining wall, there's the landscaping on it. You would have to take and redo that entire area, which is not, I mean, anything can be done, but that was what would have to be done. And the depth of it, I don't know what the exact depth of it is. I'm trying to just think of it in my mind, but possibly for one vehicle.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking all this is because Sleepy Hollow, as this commission knows, it's been a very touchy area as far as parking.
Yes.
So, this is a tough building. I don't know. We also have to be cognizant of the neighbors and the traffic that would be coming in off of Sleepy Hollow. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to find an alternative to that.
And that's why we thought that the single cabin rental would minimize all of that. I mean, as of right now,
Yeah.
C2 is for 4. However, if we want to minimize everything, minimize the destruction and imposition that this has happened in over 25 years through the entire neighbors, then by minimizing it to one cabin rental, one cabin or one residential use or one, then that's, in our minds, what we came up with.
So would you limit them to one vehicle to
Well,
the people coming in to stay at the property?
per our easement, there is a 29.81 width. And so, based on that, okay, so based on that, the DOT, Department of Transportation, allows for 8.5 to 9 feet per parking spot, which 29.81 would be plenty, correct. Yeah, definitely minimizing the land use of it.
Any more questions, Ron?
No, I'm good.
Commissioners, questions? Comments?
Mr. Chairman, I think the issue I'm having with that with you calling it a single unit, it's still a 3,000 square foot building with 4 to 5 bedrooms or however many you're going to have. You're asking your patrons to file into 3 vehicles. And within this village, we have parking issues all the time. Even with just a single 2-bedroom, cabin, there's usually people come from every direction to stay in the cabin. So, with a 4 or 5 bedroom unit, 3 vehicles are going to be tough. I'm just stating what I see. We see this a lot. You're not the first one to come at us. And Mr. Michelina also mentioned that Sleepy Hollow it's a hot spot for problems with parking. Not just because of your proposed idea, but for existing businesses there also. So, did you think to contact the owners of the parking lot to the east of you? Was that ever an issue? This empty parking lot?
2906?
It's the
Yeah, that's-
chiropractor.
Is that to the east or that to the west? Back toward the intersection between you and that building there?
Where the chiropractor
Yes.
is? No, because that was a very small area too. And I think at that point, that area, I think only has 3 parking spots in itself. So that was.
3
a
more than
small-
you got.
Well, based on our easement, not really.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you had it, that's 3 more than you already have. So I'm saying, if you owned it, then no one can tell you can't park there.
Well, that's correct. However, you can look at it like this as well. If you purchase the lot 1A and 1B, and you say, we're gonna subdivide this. But you know what, for 1B, we're subdividing it with the subject of the easement. And then the week later, you're gonna say, no, we're gonna take that easement away. It just doesn't work like that.
Okay. No other questions?
Can I speak?
You can come sit up here with her.
Sorry, my foot fell asleep. Yeah, so, my normal job, I work for the Army Corps of Engineers. We deal with real estate on a daily basis. We deal with easements. We deal with vacation of easements. Now, an easement is not an easy thing to put together and get it recorded. You've got to get the village to sign off, as Rebecca said. You've got to get everybody to sign off. To vacate an easement, it's the same process. The only way this property, in our opinion, was subdivided was subject to that easement. I can't imagine that the village or anybody would sign off on a replat to take one giant property, split it in 2, knowing that there was no parking. So in order to make this replat work, that's why the easement was so large. There's no reason to have a walking easement of that size. And I think that, I just don't feel that this is the venue for easement discussion. I think that's something between us and Ms. Jenkins. If we need to get our real estate attorneys, I think that's, in my opinion, that's not necessarily what this is for, because the easement has been in place and been used since 2007. Our realtor is here. When they advertised the property was advertised with a legal easement. They did the research. The title company found that there's only this easement in place and it's never been vacated. So I think that we're spending a lot of time on the easement, but the easement in our, we purchased it based on the easement being in place. The title company found it. I just legally, there's nothing to show that there's not an easement. And we're just trying to be as minimally evasive as possible.
Zach, I see Ms. Jenkins raising her hand. Is this subject to cross-examination even during discussion after the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, did you close the?
I did.
Okay, but I don't think anybody was given an opportunity. I don't think that we explained those rules very well. So
No.
during a quasi judicial hearing like this, the folks that are opposed to the project have the ability or the legal right to cross-examine the applicant, which means, I think, Ms. Jenkins, you're familiar with the concept of cross-examination. It's not a time to debate and testify. If you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask to develop your own arguments about why it should be denied, then you can do that. And then they have the opportunity also to cross-examine you, again, not to argue with you, but to develop their arguments about why the project should be, or the application should be submitted. So if you'd like to,
Yes,
Go ahead. No.
I do have a question. Who is going to assume the liability of the stairs which encroach on my property and any liability of vehicles if your attorney and my attorney can establish that the drawing overcompensates the notes which clearly state there is no parking? So who assumes that liability for guests?
Okay, so the encroachment of the stairs happened prior to us, so we can't be held responsible for where the stairs were put. We bought the property and it was subdivided, both properties were subdivided with those stairs already in place. So that's the encroachment problem that you're referring to.
But the encroachment belongs to your property, encroaches on mine. So regardless of who established the encroachment when they divided that, it states very clearly in encroachment explanation or definition that the encroachment belongs to you on paper, yet it still is stairs that encroach onto my property, which you expect guests to be allowed to use to get to your property. So,
Well, yeah.
So who assumes that liability?
Well, it's our property, so we would have to assume everything. I mean, within insurance, you assume the risk.
Right, but the insurance, my insurance shows the encroachment there. So your insurance will show the encroachment.
As
So
well.
I contacted my insurance company, and they said that that is an extremely vague area, that there would need to be some sort of an agreement just over the stairs.
Correct.
Because they're rock, and in this kind of weather, they're gonna be treacherous. And, you know, going back to what Gwen had said about the Disability Act, how on earth, if you're gonna do it as a commercial nightly rental, how are y'all going to ensure that all access to that property is not gonna be a jeopardy to a disabled person?
Yeah, we understand your concerns 100%, and as far as insuring it, that's where I was hoping that we were gonna meet and come up, because we're very reasonable, and talking to you on the phone, you seemed very reasonable as well. If it's an insurance thing, and we have no problem covering that entire easement, and because
It was borderline intimidation, your reasonableness, contacting us multiple times.
You haven't introduced yourself.
I'm sorry, it wasn't, Ms. Jenkins contacted me first.
No, I contacted the village to find out
Yeah.
exactly what was going on.
So-
And you know, I mean, as far as the easement itself, here is I know you didn't get the documentation, but we weren't comfortable. After the barrage of texts from you, I wasn't comfortable meeting with you. I'm not gonna be intimidated on property I own. But this is how we took possession, and if you will read number 14 here, it lines out specifically what the easement grants to you. The commission members also have a copy of my owner's policy, and y'all can see item 14. And on the plat itself, the only place you're gonna read the word parking easement is on the drawing in the notes, which is the spirit of this easement. The notes state very specifically, again, for foot traffic only, no parking.
Ms. Jenkins, thank you. Again, stating things versus cross-examination to what they were stating, I think we all understand what's going on.
There's not an only in there.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
I don't see where you're.
so parking
Go ahead,
is
Sam.
a main issue to this. If we do not have an actual property agreement that would add to this operation, then the use has a negative impact on, as you've heard, all of the surrounding properties. So without a dedicated parking agreement for this use, It's unfortunate that the property is not going to be able to move forward without having some sort of agreement in place.
So after everything we've talked about, is this up to them and their attorneys to work out an agreement and then come back to us? So should we table this pending them working it out, or do we deny it and let them come back 6 months from now?
Yes, unfortunately, if they're not meeting the minimum requirements to ensure health, safety, and welfare and mitigate any negative impact to the surrounding properties and occupants of this building, that is why staff has made the recommendation that they have.
Can I ask if there's, I mean, at the end of the day, we want to work with our neighbors, and that's why we're here. We're doing everything that we can. Is there a possibility to do something similar to Ms. Jenkins' property that is C2 zoned and have it residential? Is that something that, I mean, it's been done. Her property is currently C2 residential, and then you wouldn't have such an influx.
And just like she stated
Understand.
right earlier, she said if we were the residents there, she wouldn't have a problem with us.
But as the owner, you still have to park somewhere. And I know that's what,
She indicated.
if it's just you, then it's fine. I understand. And I live in a C2, just my house. And so when we bought our properties that were residential before we got zoned, we just kind of got grandfathered in. And that's the way I'm assuming her property is, my property is, and she's
That is the case.
nodding her head, so I'm half correct. So, Commission, what do you wish to do?
Mr. Chairman, a question, and this is for Sam and Zach. The decision, if we deny the conditional use, and then with that, the variances that are attached to it, they'd have to wait 6 months to apply again, correct? But they cannot modify this application, right? So if we table it to the chairman's recommendation or suggestion, so they can hash this out, we can't accept that modification to this application from the tabling? I guess the question is procedure, because there's some work that needs to be done, it sounds like. Is it better to deny it, wait 6 months, table it so they can work on it and bring it back to us for modification?
If you tabled it today and reconsidered it at your next meeting, there's nothing that would prohibit you from changing the application, adding conditions, taking away conditions, just depending on, how their negotiations go as neighbors. If they could come to some sort of agreement whereby the Trujillos accept all risk or liability associated with the encroachment or the steps, and if that satisfies the Jenkins, they could come back to you and say, hey, we've struck a deal with regard to that, and you could put that as a condition to the permit. That's just a suggestion, but I see Mr. Jenkins shaking his head. So, we don't need to discuss that option. I'm just saying if they are able to come to some sort of terms, there's nothing that would prevent you from, considering the new circumstances and amending the application.
Thank you.
Samantha, I'm going to ask a couple questions regarding your staff recommendation. So it says the proposed request for the commercial cabin rental appears to be inconsistent with the village code. That is the 1 unit versus the 4 unit. Is that what you're saying is inconsistent? And you're saying contradicting to the comprehensive plan. What are we contradicting in the comp plan? That we need more rentals? What's the contradiction to, or is it parking?
Because in that district, along the metropolitan redevelopment area, we're looking to revitalize commercial properties, not turn them to single-family residence.
So the code says we want more retail, therefore more taxes, and help everybody understand. Okay.
Well, on the comprehensive plan, is that the one that was passed in 2021 that recommends mixed use? Is that a different plan?
The comprehensive plan was adopted in 2019, and then the metropolitan redevelopment area was 2021. Mixed use would be like retail on bottom.
Residential?
Yeah.
Because the 2021 plan signed by the mayor in March of 2021, recommends commercial be more mixed use with residential and commercial mixed. And
Within the same structure.
Usually top, bottom, correct, Sam? And this would be one, based off the plans that you have, sir, full cabin with a kitchen, residential.
so,
right?
just another question. I noticed that many of the properties just across the street are zoned. They were C2, but were kind of changed to C1. If you look on the GIS mapping, they were C2, and they're changed to C1. So pretty much all the properties across the street, which include the Adobe, stuff like that. And C1 is more, I guess it's like a neighborhood commercial or neighboring, I'm sorry, I don't know the exact terminology, but that appears to be more kind of welcoming to what we are trying to do. Is a rezoning of some sort of possibility?
We have C2 on both sides of Sudworth Drive.
So I guess,
Here's a zoning map if you'd like it.
yeah, but when you look on GIS mapping, it actually shows.
This is a screenshot from GIS, from our GIS map.
No, I understand. When you click on it, it's got C2, and then there was like a revision that shows C1.
Maybe it changed from C1.
So a question for you, right now, is it being a C2, it would be a minimum,
For those. I mean, at the end of the day, we're very reasonable, and we understand the concern, the liability, the insurance, stuff like that. We wouldn't expect you to
Cover it.
cover or take on anything above and beyond. We were sold the property with
That easement. and-
everybody, including our realtor attorneys, everybody. We reached out and tried to do our best due diligence. It was actually advertised. We mentioned to our realtor that you contacted them, and they indicated that, yeah, you did contact them. However, their research showed that this had a legal parking easement. We purchased that property with that easement. So,
The title company also, I mean, whenever you purchase any kind of property.
For sale with zero parking.
that's not,
Without the listing. It says zero parking.
that's not true, sir.
Without
absolutely
arguing,
not true.
we pulled it up today, and it was shown originally as 0 spaces. Then when I contacted the realtor, because there were 2 realtors that turned that property away because of this issue. Now, you can look at the spirit of this survey, and you can go off of this, which I understand that's why, and what you latched onto. The thing is that it was a direct quote from this easement on our title policies. So if you and I both need to go back to our title companies and to see exactly, because I'm not sure that you and I need to be the ones to incur liability over an easement that seems to be very ambiguous. I don't know that that falls on us, because if your owner's policy states that you have coverage, of course, it looked to me like y'all were granted an exception for that easement, which means it did not cover it at all. An exceptions mean they remove that. Mine does not say that. Mine spells it out very clearly, exactly what the easement is, which we can track.
All right, I'm gonna cut off the discussion. We
Chairman.
need to have this to the commission, have questions answered, discussion within the commission, please.
I have a question for Sam. So it being a C2, it's a minimum of 4 units, correct?
Yes.
And 2 spaces per unit, so we need 8 parking spaces. That's where we're at. If we want to abide by our rules and regulations as we are now, a C2 would be 4 units. You've got a 5-bedroom establishment there, more or less. So if we're going as commissioners, if we're going to abide by the rules that are in place now, we need to abide by the rules and say this should be a 4-unit piece of property being under the C2 rules.
So
Is that
right
correct?
now,
Yes,
it's
it's-
But
13
it's
offices.
there's 13 offices
That's
right now.
correct.
That
Yeah,
was-
but those
that
were
was approved.
offices, and now you're wanting to put You're going to put residential in there,
Can I just ask
cabins.
this question? If there's many different businesses allowed for C2 zoning, if this is denied, and is there anything keeping us from opening any of the other businesses that are still gonna have
The impact
huge impacts on the community?
to everyone.
There's a list of 50 businesses, whether it's a marijuana pot shop, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's something where, is there anything keeping
There-
us from doing that?
There are parking regulations for per square footage of whatever you're trying to
Unless you're
open.
in C3. C3 has 0.
So when you come for your business registration, that's when we check to make sure you have the appropriate number of parking spaces to include
Just to
handicap.
sit there and never, I mean, it's,
I would say go to your neighbors and buy some property. I know that sounds bad, but that's,
But the thing is we bought this property with that easement in place.
and that's a legal thing.
And
that-
that's a
that we can
legal
try and-
document filed through the Lincoln County.
We
Now,
we
who-
understand. She has one, you have one.
But
We have
there's
copies
no-
of both of them, I know.
We have 3 parking spots within that easement.
We understand. That's what you're saying, and that's what the Jenkins are saying, that you don't, because it doesn't address, we understand the differences here. And I'm saying, commissioners, are you going to sort it all out? What do you want to do? Are we going to
I
come
don't-
back at a
Alan-
later time?
Mr. Chairman,
I don't think we have all the info that we need to make a proper decision here. If they're gonna go back and talk to the neighbors and see what they can work out, and they do get legal papers defining what they have, then we have something to work with. But
Are you suggesting to table this then? Is
that's
that?
what that is what I'm suggesting,
vote against it.
unless they want to move forward. But if they move forward, it may not go, for them this time. So I
Mr.
think
Chairman,
tabling would be the best idea.
sorry, Ron, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all.
I'll make a comment and then I'll make a motion. I think we should proceed. I don't think tabling it will give anyone enough time to get this resolved. I also think, based off the staff recommendation that we have right now, which is pretty clear, and based off the confusion and the concern that we've heard from others in the area, I think it's best for us to move forward with what is in front of us and proceed with a vote. So I'm going to make a motion, but I want my comment to kind of be clear that I don't think that this is the best path.
Well, yes, we've already had public comment. You didn't speak at that time. But I'll let you just real quick, because he's about ready to make a motion, so go.
Okay,
Give you a half a minute.
what would this, my name is Teresa Trujillo. Okay, this building is going to go to waste if something isn't done, and it's a beautiful building. My family, my children are coming here because my husband and I moved here to this wonderful, beautiful place. And they want to be close to us because we're probably going to need some help in a few years. And eventually, I'm sure that they're going to want to live here. What would it take to change the zoning to residential? And that way, if that's the worst scenario, but at least if it's a residential area, maybe they can live there and not rent it,
Yes, ma'am,
What would it
we do understand, and residential, as we've said, residential is allowed in a C2 zone. It's just, this application is for a rental, and that's what's making it all confusing.
We were told that residential is not allowed.
That's what
Ms.
they were doing.
Warren indicated that residential is not allowed. She indicated that you have to change the entire block. We tried.
Well, that's for the zoning, but a residence is allowed in a commercial to zone.
Okay.
I think she's talking about rezoning it, but
Okay.
it's not a rezone.
So there is
If I may make
residential.
a clarification, it was because this is not a residence to be
It's
used
not a
as a
residence.
residential property.
It's a commercial.
It's a commercial,
property.
changed
Got it.
occupancy. So it's different than what you experience on your property.
So they can't live in it and make it a home, and that way it would be good for the neighbors, good for you guys, and they could, just have their family and friends if they, come. Would that be something you could consider? Because we don't want to, I can't see them losing all this work and this beautiful property, and it'll just benefit you guys. It'll benefit Ruidoso.
Yes, ma'am. However, that's not what's before us now. And that we have to act on the law and the ordinances that are before us now. And I think Commissioner Rigsby.
Is that something that we could discuss and come back? Because,
And
6 months is just.
I mean, that's a huge financial burden for us.
And then it's gonna just get really.
It's gonna sit there another 6 months instead of acting on it and making something right away prior to the summer, getting it ready. I mean, there has to be a solution. is what I'm saying.
I'm wondering if our commissioner at the end has that solution.
Mr. Chairman, you're putting a lot of pressure on me. I didn't have the solution, I don't believe. With my comment in mind that I don't believe that this is adhering to the variances that we should look for or the conditional uses that we should grant. My comment or my motion will be based on the foregoing findings of fact per 54-68 and 54-100 of the village codes. I move to grant the requested conditional use of case CU 22-507 with the conditions stated in the case report. I make that motion with the final comment that we should do the motions in the affirmative, even if we disagree with the motion,
Thank you.
if that makes my opinion. Robert's rule suggests that you do it in the affirmative, so granting a case approval, for ease of voting yes, no on that particular motion.
Which is based upon staff's recommendation is they're going for a rental, which means you have to have 4 units and you have to have 2 parking places per unit. That's his recommendation. Well, the puppies are seconding it.
I know. They're ready to vote.
Do I have a second?
I second it, Alan.
All right, for, is that yours, Ron? It's okay. So Stephanie, would you call the roll? And I want to make sure that if you vote in the negative, we need to have a reason for this, please. Roll call.
Commissioner Bach?
Yes.
Commissioner Briley?
I'm going to vote no, because I think there's alternate ways to take care of things in the next month or 2.
Commissioner Byers?
Nay. Nay.
Your reason?
My reason? Oh, I don't think it's the, good grief.
The same as what he was saying?
Pretty much, yeah. I think there's all other alternatives.
Commissioner McElina?
I'm a nay, and the reason being is this whole parking issue, I think it needs to be resolved first, whether we do a residential, whether it's a 3,000 square foot cabin or a 4-unit. And so I'm just a nay at this time.
Commissioner Richardson?
I'm a nay. Parking is all on me.
All right, so,
Oh, hold on. Commissioner
Still
Rigsby?
get to vote?
oh. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. He's over there in the corner. I forgot all about him.
It's a nay for me.
Okay.
It doesn't adhere to the master plan or the conditional use granted as well, parking being a primary issue. So similar to what my other commissioners have stated.
So,
So in that, we have 1 positive and 4 negatives. Motion does not carry.
right. Samantha, so their options are, what are their options? I mean, because we voted this specific conditional use down, can they come in with other options and solutions, or do they have to wait 6 months for that too?
As far as it comes to cabin rentals
Or
any other
any
principal
other
permitted use.
type of use?
Would be willing to meet with you all outside of this meeting.
Okay, yeah. Because, well, I agree with you guys, there's definitely.
Yeah. The whole, well, the corner lot right there on Sutterth and Meacham and the chiropractor, that one, and the plaza all have, to me, parking issues. They all need to be C3. That's just my commentary.
Can I just ask a question that it's basically kind of procedure? If we were able to try and come up with a way to, because there is some space in the front, it's minimal, we haven't really measured it. We don't mind trying, like I say, we're trying to do what's as minimal, gonna cause as minimal damage to them and the neighboring communities. The process of adding maybe, I know they're doing some work there, if we put a kind of a turnout there and kind of retaining wall, whatever's needed to kind of create some parking space in the front. Is that a process that we go through the village, or is that a DOT thing, or is, I mean, I don't know if this is the place to ask.
Again, this is a village street now. It probably once upon a time was to be a DOT, but it's not. It's all within the village of Ruidoso. So the solutions are yes. However, if you're going for cabin rentals, the recommendation is always going to be 4 units, because that's what our code says, that's what it is, which means 8 units. And I don't think you can squeeze 8 into that place. There's that little triangular piece on, that's the west side, that seems to be,
That's
may be able to get
on the
1.
right side, there's potential for 2, I think, if we, I think there's a potential for 2.
So,
On the other side.
yeah.
On the right side, because it went
we're-
out further than we thought. When they did the boundary survey, it actually, it's pretty decent to the right.
So, staff is very creative. I'm sure that they will figure out something, because I think we want to see that building in use, whether it's cabin use, residential use, commercial use, whatever, but it needs to be not a detriment to the neighborhood as well.
That's understandable.
So next month, we would revisit this
Or
with
we
a
meet
C2.
outside of
Just need to meet with them and see
We'll
what.
visit you with after the meeting.
Okay. Very good comments. I know you have to go to Albuquerque, so do I. So let's go. Community development report. Sam, what do you got for us today?
We included our manager's report for the month of November in your all's packet. If you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But it's
Okay,
there for your reading pleasure.
very good. So do we start calling you commissioner now, or is it just Sam when you're here locally? Commissioners report. Does anybody have any reports that they wish to state, or ideas or solutions they would propose to Sam, to Zach? Hearing none? We're adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Stephanie, you got my signatured, correct?
If Dan wants to rezone, they could talk and work together to rezone.
What,
But
what does that